Senior High School On-Air Academy. Unstoppable! Delivering you quality education amidst pandemic.
To defer school opening to October 5.
Unstoppable!
Giving you accessible learning platform anytime, anywhere.
Ang klase, whatever form it is.
Comprehensible!
Buckle up and get yourself ready.
I will repeat, then you will do it later on.
Accurate!
The sphere that includes all living
Today,
things.
we will be talking about rational functions.
Simplified.
This is Jaw speaking. How may I help you?
This is Zapet School Radio's Senior High School On-Air
On-Air
Academy. And now, here's your new episode 4, Understanding Filipino Politics.
Your guide in the subject, Philippine Politics and Governance. Understanding Filipino Politics.
Understanding Filipino Politics.
Amazing day, senior high school learners. This is the School on Air for Philippine Politics and Governance. I know that you are determined to learn through this modality and no one can stop us despite this pandemic. I am delighted to be with you today. Now, get yourself ready for a series of fun and new learning experience. I am your radio teacher, Jessa. I hope you are doing good and is fully aware of what's happening in the country. Did you watch, read, or listen to the news lately? Wow, that's good. Basically, to fully understand our lessons, we need to look on the real life applications of concepts. And a good way to do this is to be acquainted with civil matters. Now, let's try to review the concepts that you learned. Are you ready? What are the elements of state? Very good. These are people, territory, government, and sovereignty. Therefore, a state is a community of persons more or less numerous occupying a definite portion of territory, having a government of their own, in which the great body of inhabitants render habitual obedience and enjoying freedom from external control. These elements are essential to make up a state. What about nation? Yes, nation is simply a body of people united by common decent history, culture, or language inhabiting a particular territory. So, my dear learners, can you tell me the difference between state and nation? You shouldn't also forget the relationship of globalization among nation states. Bear in mind, my dear learners, that globalization creates a sense of interdependence among nation states by forging its international, political, economic, religious, and socio-cultural interconnections. Hence, it generates imbalance of power among nation states of different economic strengths. Now, let's check the short quiz you took in our last episode. For question number 1, this is a self-governing political entity. You got it right. The answer is state. What is the answer for question number 2? Very good. It's government. Government is an institution or agency through which the state maintains social order and provides public services. For question number 3, the answer is nation. It is inhabited by homogeneous groups of people. Let's proceed to question number 4. The answer is nation state. What about the answer for question number 5? Excellent! The answer is globalization. Take note that globalization is a process of forging international, political, economic, religious, and social, cultural interconnections. Are you still with me? That's good to hear. Now for number 6, it refers to supreme and absolute power within its territorial boundaries. What is the answer? Yes, it's sovereignty. For number 7, the answer is us, people. We are the inhabitants of the state. What about for number 8? The answer is territory. It is the portion of the earth where we live. For number 9, the answer is terrestrial domain. It is the landmass area of a territory. Lastly, for number 10, the answer is fluvial domain. It refers to waters around and connecting the islands of archipelago. You really got the answers correctly. Job well done, grade 11 learners. Give yourselves a round of applause. Are you excited to learn more? I'm pretty sure you are. So, before we start our lesson, I want you to get your pen and notepads ready to take down notes. We will push through with our lesson after this short infomercial.
Nay! Ang sabi sa balita, yellow warning ang ulan. Ibig ba sabihin kulay dilaw ang ulan?
Hindi anak. Ang tawag dyan ay rainfall warning. Ang yellow warning ay ginagamit para lamang paalalahanan ang mga mamamayan na maging mapagmatyag dahil posible ang pagbaha.
Meron din bang ibang kulay, inay?
Mayroong orange warning na nagpapahiwatig na kailangang maging alerto dahil mapanganib ang pagbaha. Merong ding red warning upang magpaalala sa mga residente sa mga mababang lugar na lumikas sa ligtas at mas mataas na lugar.
Ganoon ba, inay? Ngayon alam ko na.
Maging handa sa anumang sakuna. Isang paalala mula sa Department of Education, NDRRMC at ng himpilang ito.
Welcome back, dear grade 11 learners, to our radio-based instruction. I hope you're still tuning in to our radio class with all your might and attention. Are you all excited now for our next lesson on air? That's a great vibe. Now, just sit, relax, and listen intently in order for you to comprehend everything to be aired. Marcus Garvey once said that a person without knowledge of their past history, origin, and culture is like a tree without roots. In today's episode, we're going to learn about the evolution of Philippine politics and governance so that you will be equipped with knowledge about the development of our political history. Does it ring a bell? Yes, of course. I know you have ideas in your mind right now. Alright, read for a minute the background information for learners in your learning activity sheet. Did you get some insights on the topic based from what you read? That's great to hear. So let us talk more. How did Philippine politics and governance evolve? Take note, my dear learners, that development and evolution of Philippine politics and governance started from the pre-colonial period, Spanish period, American period, Japanese period, Marcos period, and the present system. Let's start with the pre-colonial period. The pre-colonial period is also called the pre-Spanish period. In this period, early Filipinos already formed a government, which they called balangay. In this system, the datu or raja, who holds the highest position, exercises all powers of the government. He makes laws, implements laws, and acts as the chief judge in dispute resolution together with his council of elders. What social class does the datu or raja belong to? Very good. It's the upper class, or called as the Maharlika. Bear in mind that during this period, there are three social classes, namely the Maharlika, Timawa or the freemen, and Alipin or slaves. The Maharlika, Timawa or the freemen, and Alipin or slaves. Meanwhile, do they have a constitution or set of laws? You're right, our ancestors had, although it isn't integrated into a single complete form but are scattered in various sources such as judicial decisions, customs, and traditions. We call this as unwritten constitution. Are you still willing to know more about the development of Philippine politics and governance? Oh wow, that's great to hear. Let's continue with the Spanish period. The Philippines during this period was a colony of Spain dahil sinakop ng Espanya ang Pilipinas. Therefore, as a colony, we were governed directly by the King of Spain. The government established in the Philippines was centralized. In the system, the King of Spain appoints the Governor General as his representative. The Governor General holds the highest position in the national government and implement laws. Below the national government were the alcaldía or provinces headed by the alcalde mayor, the pueblos or towns headed by the gobernadorcillo, and the barangays led by the cabeza de barangay. So, does the Governor General act as the chief judge like the datu or raja? You got it correctly. He doesn't, because in this period, the judiciary is independent from the executive. It is known as the Royal Audiencia or Supreme Court. Take note, my dear learners, that there were groups who wanted complete separation from Spain, and one of that was a group headed by Andres Bonifacio, who organized the Katipunan. It precipitated the Philippine Revolution. Afterwards, a revolutionary government was formed by Emilio Aguinaldo. The Biak na Bato Republic was established, aiming for total separation from Spain and formation of the Philippines as an independent state. With that, Philippine independence was proclaimed in Kawit, Cavite on June 12, 1898. Philippine independence was proclaimed in Kawit, Cavite on June 12, 1898, and General Emilio Aguinaldo established the first Philippine Republic under the 1899 Constitution, or Malolos Constitution, which ended the Spanish rule. Is the Spanish period interesting? Okay, this time, let's talk about the American period. The American period. The government during the American regime was headed by a civil governor. He exercises both executive and legislative power. It means that he executes or implements laws, and at the same time he makes laws because he leads the Philippine Commission, the lawmaking body. Through the Philippine Bill of 1902, the Philippine Assembly was created as the lower house and the Philippine Commission as the upper house. All the lawmakers during this time were Americans. Jones Law was passed. My dear learners, you have to bear in mind that through this law, an all-Filipino lawmaking body composed the upper house and lower house was made. Another significant law that was passed was the Tidings-McDuffie Law. This law established the Commonwealth government. It was a form of government in transition toward independence. Question: who was the Filipino president under the Commonwealth government? Very good. You still have a good memory. Manuel L. Quezon assumed the powers and responsibilities of the Commonwealth government under the 1935 Constitution through presidential system of government. Are you still there, my dear student listeners? Are you still willing to learn more about the topic? That's great to hear. Now let's proceed with the Japanese period. The Japanese military administration ruled over the Philippines for 3 years. A civil government as the Philippine Executive Commission. It exercises legislative and executive powers, although laws were subject to approval by the Commander-in-Chief of the Japanese forces. The Second Philippine Republic was organized with the enactment of 1943 Constitution. Jose P. Laurel acted as the puppet president of the Japanese-sponsored government. Jose P. Laurel, as the president of the Philippines, was succeeded by the following: Manuel L. Rojas, Elpidio R. Quirino, Ramon F. Magsaysay, Carlos P. Garcia, Diosdado P. Macapagal, and Ferdinand E. Marcos. My dear learners, let's look into the system of governance under the Marcos period. Are you ready? Ferdinand E. Marcos established an authoritarian regime from 1966 to 1986. Marcos proclaimed martial law by virtue of Proclamation 1081 in his desire to remain in power, and this 1973 Constitution was promulgated. With the enactment of 1973 Constitution, Marcos assumed the executive and legislative powers for his own ends under the parliamentary system of governance. Under this new system, Marcos continued to govern by decree, suppressing democratic institutions and restricting civil freedom. When opposition leader Benigno Aquino was assassinated, plus massive corruption and fraud experienced by the Filipinos triggered the People Power Revolution. We were ousted from power. The rest is history. Now, question: who was the first female president? Excellent! It was Corazon Aquino, the one who succeeded Ferdinand Marcos. She issued a provisional constitution. The 1986 Constitution are also known as the Freedom Constitution. This constitution gave the president broad powers and great authority to restore democracy and served as a transition to the making of the 1987 Constitution. Now, you have to bear in mind, my dear listeners, that the 1987 Constitution is our supreme law of the land. It established a democratic and republican state with the power divided among 3 separate and independent branches of government: the executive, a bicameral legislature having 2 branches, the House of Representatives and the Senate, and the judiciary. This is our governing constitution. I hope that everything is crystal clear. This time, let us recall what we discussed about the development of Philippine politics and governance. Can you still remember the significant points of our discussion? Wow, I'm happy to hear that. Thank you. Don't forget, my dear student listeners, that in every period of the evolution of the Philippine politics and governance, it had its own system of governance. Just like during the pre-Spanish period, it was governed by the Datu Oraha, who came from the Maharlika class. He exercises all powers of government under an unwritten form of constitution. On the other hand, Philippines became a colony of Spain under the Spanish period. Hence, we were governed directly by the King of Spain through his representative in the Philippines called as the Governor General. The government established in the Philippines was centralized from the national government headed by the Governor General. Moreover, since a revolution was launched against Spain, the revolutionaries declared Philippine independence. What became known as the Malolos Constitution or the 1899 Constitution ushered to the establishment of the first Philippine Republic under the administration of Emilio Aguinaldo. Are you still on track? Okay, that's great. You were listening to me well. So after Spain sold the Philippines to the United States in the Treaty of Paris. The United States occupied the Philippines headed by a civil governor. Through the Philippine Bill of 1902, the Philippine Assembly was created as the lower house and the Philippine Commission as the upper house. All the lawmakers during this time were Americans, but with the passage of Jones Law, an all-Filipino lawmaking body composed the legislature. Please bear in mind Tidings-McDuffie Law. This law established the Commonwealth government with Manuel L. Quezon as the first Commonwealth president under the 1935 Constitution with a presidential system of governance. We also have the Japanese period. The Second Philippine Republic was organized with the enactment of the 1943 Constitution. Jose P. Laurel acted as the puppet president of the Japanese-sponsored government. After the administration of Jose P. Laurel, he was succeeded by the following individuals who served as presidents under the presidential system of the 1935 Constitution. They are Manuel L. Rojas, Elpidio R. Quirino, Ramon F. Magsaysay, Carlos P. Garcia, Diosdado P. Macapagal. Then we had martial law. What you have to remember during the Marcos period is that he exercised both executive and legislative powers under the parliamentary system of governance of the 1973 Constitution. However, through the People Power Revolution, he was ousted in his position. Corazon Aquino, the first female president, succeeded Marcos and promulgated the 1986 Constitution to restore democracy and served as a transition to the making of the 1987 Constitution. Is it clear? What about the present system? Can you determine the form of government? Job well done, my dear learners. You got it right. It's a democratic and republican state with power divided among three separate and independent branches of government. The executive, a bicameral legislature having two branches, the House of Representatives and the Senate, and the judiciary. All of these branches are independent. They exercise a system of checks and balances. When we come back, we shall have a short quiz about what we discussed. Stay tuned and don't go away.
They say knowledge is power in this world full of devour. Be prepared in mind and never get reckless. We'll conquer the world. Let's be educated. Education is indeed a key to success. Education must continue despite of the pandemic. A simple reminder from the Department of Education and this station.
Welcome back! Are you ready now for the short quiz? Don't worry, my dear learners, because the quiz is very easy. I believe you can perfect it, provided you listen intently and took down notes, the significant ideas. Alright? Please get a piece of paper and identify whether the statement is true or false. I'll be reading it twice. Ready? I'm sure you are. So let's start with number 1. The early form of government is called barangay system. I repeat, number 1. The early form of government is called barangay system. For number 2, the gobernadorcillo heads the alcaldía. I repeat, the gobernadorcillo heads the alcaldía. For number 3, Andres Bonifacio headed the First Philippine Republic. Number 3, Andres Bonifacio headed the First Philippine Republic. For number 4, the Americans acquired the Philippines through the Treaty of Paris. For number 4, the Americans acquired the Philippines through the Treaty of Paris. For number 5, the Jones Law formed an all-Filipino lawmaking body in the upper house and lower house. For number 5, the Jones Law formed an all-Filipino lawmaking body in the upper house and lower house. For number 6, Jose P. Laurel was the president under the Second Philippine Republic. I repeat, number 6, Jose P. Laurel was a president under the Second Philippine Republic. For number 7, Manuel L. Rojas and Pijo R. Quirino, Ramon F. Magsaysay, Carlos P. Garcia, and Diosdado P. Macapagal served as presidents under the 1943 Constitution. I repeat, for number 7, Manuel L. Rojas and Pijo R. Quirino, Ramon F. Magsaysay, Carlos P. Garcia, and Diosdado P. Macapagal served as presidents under the 1943 Constitution. For number 8, Ferdinand E. Marcos exercises powers through a parliamentary system of governance. Number 8, Ferdinand E. Marcos exercises powers through a parliamentary system of governance. For number 9, the 1987 Constitution is called as a Freedom Constitution. For number 9, the 1987 Constitution is called as the Freedom Constitution. Lastly, for number 10, the 1987 Constitution is the highest law of the land. For number 10, the 1987 Constitution is the highest law of the land. Job well done, my dear learners, for listening and understanding our lesson. You deserve a resounding applause. Indeed, you learned a lot today. I'll be giving you the answers in our next episode. Now, my dear learners, you are a tree with roots, equipped with knowledge of your history regarding the development and evolution of Philippine politics and governance. Again, thank you so much for staying with me in this radio discussion. I hope that you had an abundant time spent in our lesson. In behalf of Teacher Christian Jane M. Hogang, our scriptwriter, and the whole production team of Senior High School RBI Sdo Isabela, I am Teacher Jessa, your radio teacher, signing off. Keep learning. See you in our next episode.
Patuloy ang edukasyon para sa ating henerasyon.
Sa daan ng pagkatuto ay walang may iwan.
Kaya halina sa Radyo Eskwela.
Tayo na sa Radyo Eskwela. Tayo na!
Mare, ba't may gamit kayong radyo ngayon? Luma na yan ah.
Mare, ang radyo ay kailanman hindi na paglilipasan ng panahon. Lalo ngayon, isa ang radio-based instruction sa napiling gamitin ng DepEd para maituloy ang pag-aaral ng mga bata sa kabila ng pandemiko.
Wow, ang galing naman. Sige Mare, uwi na ako para makabili ng radyo para sa inaanak mo.
Tara na't matuto sa kabila ng pandemiko. Isang paalala mula sa DepEd at ng himpilang ito. Sulong Edukalidad!
Halina't matuto, gamit ang ating radyo. Pakinggan at unawain, aralin na ituturo. Patuloy ang edukasyon para sa ating henerasyon. Sa daan ng pagkatuto ay walang maiiwan. Kaya halina sa Radyo Eskwela.
Hi guys! Welcome back to my channel. So today guys, mag-makeup tayo ng bonggang-bongga para pretty tayo everyday. Yes! So una, dapat nakapag-moisturizer na kayo. The next is foundation na. Tapos itago natin ang bakas ng nakaraan. Pag-concealer tayo. Then iset na natin ang powder. Ayan! Huwag kalimutan ng eyeshadow. Tay? Wala naman ako ginagawang masama. Ano bang mali sa pagiging masaya? Sa kung sino at ano ako? Ha? Ano ba? Ang pagiging lesbian, gay, bisexual o transgender ay hindi sakit at hindi namamana. Kusa itong pinili ng tao na kabilang dito bilang parte ng kanyang oryentasyon at ekspresyon ng sarili. Huwag nating hayaang mabuhay at manatili sa takot ang mga batang ito. Lahat tayo, ano man ang kulay o kasarian, ay pantay-pantay. Isang paalala mula sa kagawaran ng edukasyon at ng himpilang ito.